A little bit of background into Mayfair Education. So we're a tutoring startup and we provide a variety of different services ranging from like primary school all the way into high school and for US and UK applications as well. And so we have a dedicated team behind us and we focus on the learning styles and the strengths and weaknesses of each individual student. And so if you have any questions about the webinar today, please feel free to email us, visit our website, or interact with us on social media as well. So our first panelist is Eloise. She is currently a junior at Dartmouth College, so she is in the class of 2023. She is majoring in economics with a minor in sustainability. Eloise is actually in the US at Dartmouth right now, so we're really grateful to have her here despite the time zone differences. Our next panelist is Justin. So Justin is currently at the University of Pennsylvania. He's also part of the class of 2023. Justin is currently double majoring in economics and political science at Penn. Compared to Australian applications, the US application has quite a few more requirements and is, I guess, a bit more of a holistic process. School grades are considered all the way back from year 9. And so it's important that if you are considering applying to the US, to start thinking about this earlier on. The SAT and the ACT is another part of the US application. Still do recommend that if you do have the opportunity to take it, it's still a good idea, particularly because if you are taking the HSC or the VCE, these are systems that the US colleges might not be as familiar with. And so it just gives you another opportunity to show your academic abilities. The next part of the application is extracurriculars. And this is an opportunity for colleges to kind of get an idea of who you are outside of the classroom and to get a little bit more insight into your interests and how you kind of engage with the community. The Common App essay and the supplementary questions, these together kind of provide the college admission officers with insight into who you are, what your values are. It provides you with an opportunity to kind of showcase what your motivations are for studying in the US, as well as studying at their specific college. And then the final part of the application is the alumni interview. And this is held after the written applications have been submitted into the schools. First of all, why did you choose to apply for the US? And then why did you choose to study there?
So I chose to apply to the US because both my parents are American. And so they went through the whole kind of US system. And I just kind of grew up hearing about it. And it really appealed to me because I didn't have to decide what I wanted to do kind of straight out of high school.
Funny story, actually. Like my original intention to go to the United States to study actually came from an obsession with Iron Man and Tony Stark when I was a little kid. I found out that he actually went to college at MIT. So ever since then, I've just had this sort of fantasy about going to the US. As Elle said, there's this sort of freedom that comes with a US college education where you're not committed to a major straight out of high school.
How did you choose to apply to the specific universities or colleges that you did apply to in the end?
I actually did 2 different admission cycles. I applied regularly, but then I've just recently transferred to Dartmouth. So my first admission cycle, I didn't really know a whole lot about the US. So I applied to lots of liberal arts colleges, large schools, and basically just saw where I got in and then narrowed it down from there because I visited them. But on my transfer process, I applied specifically by looking at professors. I knew what degree I wanted. And so I only applied to 3 schools because I knew what I wanted to study. And I thought what's going to be the best fit for me and where can I kind of achieve my goals.
I knew a little bit about the US college system, but didn't really fully understand it. So I think my application process was more so applying to schools that are well known, I guess. And I would only, in my mind, it would only be worth it for me to make such a huge sacrifice to go to the US if the schools that I got into were of a decent caliber.
And Eloise, so you mentioned early decision and early action. Can you give us some insight into the difference between those?
So early decision is a binding commitment. You're basically saying, if I send in this application and you accept it, I will be coming to this school. unless they defer, and then that kind of puts you into the regular decision round. Early action is not binding. So I think if you get in, you can then apply to like 3 other schools, see how you go, and then you can make a choice. So it's much more fluid.
You mentioned before about not being like bound to a specific like major or a specific degree, but are there any other differences that you found between studying in the US and studying in Australia?
Yeah, I've noticed that because everyone in the US is on campus, there's much more of a kind of community aspect to studying here. So, you're living with your friends, and so you're just kind of constantly seeing them. Um, you're joining extracurricular activities and kind of bonding with people through that. And because your professors are all living kind of right by campus, you see them around a lot. And Dartmouth actually has a program where you take your professors out to lunch every term. So you can really get to know these people, which I think is different from studying in Australia, where typically people live at home unless you're in one of the colleges. And it's much more like academic, whereas I think the US is more kind of holistic.
I totally agree with that. And like I had the opportunity to study at Melbourne University for about 2 months before I got my acceptance letter to Penn. So I did sort of see that difference, as Elle was saying.
What have you found to be like the main benefits of studying in the US?
I think it's the community, yeah, for sure. I think everyone is just so open and everyone's just looking towards each other for help, not just towards the professors. I know a lot of my friends form study groups together, and it's a really cool experience to have. In the States, it's more so like entrenched within the culture to be really sociable throughout college. I think also one other thing is like the professors as well, and they're just really willing to help. And if you're proactive and if you're willing to ask questions and if you're willing to search out what you don't know, then these professors are going to be so willing to help. And it's not just academics wise; it's also like career wise as well. Like if you're in contact with someone who's with a professor who's doing research and you ask them if there's any like research internships during the summer, they'd be more than willing to help you.
I think another benefit is that you're kind of on your own. So you have a lot of freedom. You can totally regulate your schedule, you choose who your friends are, you choose what activities you want to do. And it basically like prepares you for life. It's like life on training wheels. You have this environment completely catered for optimizing your learning. And so you can just totally focus on yourself and managing yourself to like get the most out of the experience.
Wanted to add as well that I think kind of along the lines of what you were saying, Justin, I think there's a lot of like support as well, not only from like professors and the people around you, but something that I found a lot of like alumni support as well. And so there's like various like mentorship programs and you get to interact with alumni a lot. And they're always like so willing and so like happy to help out.
Yeah, like just to add on to that, it's just there's an entrenched like college spirit that's I guess portrayed in like movies or whatever, but it's actually really true. Once you graduate, you're a part of that college family, and that support network is so valuable. And I'd say it's that's like another reason as to why I chose to go to the US, because of that alumni group and that support network that you have.
Can we get an insight into what extracurriculars are offered?
I think you can pretty much do whatever you want to do. I mean, I know like a lot of the colleges basically said you can create your own club if there's enough interest. So the options are endless. I think it's mostly about just curating what you actually want to spend your time on, because you are here to study, and that does take a lot of time. So my extracurriculars are a cappella, triathlon, and a consulting club. So I basically thought like, how am I going to look after like my emotional, physical, and mental health?
I think my one was just like throwing myself into the mix of things as much as possible. With One Asia Exchange, it was more so like I wanted to, see what being part of like a pre-professional club was going to be like. With Penn Create, I just like I guess I'm like a little bit artsy, but I just wanted to see like how that could be like curated. And with Weekend Swim, it's like a really cool organization where we invite underprivileged Philly kids to come to our pool and we teach them how to swim.
Going into like your experience like as an international student, how did you find settling in as an international student, and was there like any support in particular?
For me at least, like it was a really big transition. I think over time you do get used to it and you do meet people that you gel with, and that's the main like turning point was when I found like a solid group of like 3 or 4 friends that I could hang out with consistently.
Yeah, I would agree. I think honestly, the cultural differences like kind of snuck up on me.
I found the Australian accent though was pretty good in
Yeah.
the US.
Yeah, they love it. But yeah, you just kind of have to throw yourself into the social scene and make friends. And it's so easy because everyone's new. Like no one really knows each other. So everyone's open to meeting new people. And the Australian stereotype of kind of being friendly and easygoing, everyone pretty much loves it.
That there is like an international student like association or club or something like that. And I was pretty involved in that at Penn. And so I think through that, I was able to like meet a lot of people, not only from Australia, but also like internationally from like various different countries. And that kind of helped me feel a little bit more at home. Final question before we open up to Q&A is, what advice would you give to those who are planning on applying for US colleges?
I would say figure out what you want and go for that. And by that, I mean, like, do you want a school that's in a city or that's rural? How large do you want the student population to be? What are you interested in studying? And therefore, like, what type of schools should you be targeting? Do you really care about how large the class sizes are? You just have to figure out what is going to work for you and go for it.
Yeah, like I totally agree with that. Try and figure things out as soon as possible, but at the same time, approach the whole like college application process with like an open mind, and just try and be true to yourself, because that sounds like such a cliche, but it's so true when applying for US colleges in particular, because once an admissions officer sees your application, they can tell whether these extracurricular activities are just resume buffers or if you've actually been interested in them. So like just be true to yourself and do things that you are genuinely interested in.
Probably just like start early, because I know like year 11 and year 12, there's like a lot going on, and the US application does have a lot in it. And so starting early just I think would take the load off in your like upper years.